What if I told you that most of your home studio problems are happening before you even get to the computer? Today, I'm going to show you 8 simple fixes that'll help your home recordings sound professional. Tip number 1 is to get the sound right first. So before you even grab mics or set anything up, make sure whatever you're going to record is sounding exactly how you want it to. So this could be making sure your guitar's in tune. If you're using any effects or pedals or outboard gear, making sure all of that is set up how you want. This is especially big for guitars and keyboards. Make sure that you have the right sound. You know, your patch, your effects, whatever you're using, make sure that sounds how you want before you even record it. This is going to help you tremendously as you start to get into the recording process and get things mic'd up and all of that. It's a lot easier to start with a sound that you actually like and just improve it later, rather than trying to create the sound and get a sound you're happy with completely in the mixing process. Tip number 2 is to pay attention to mic selection and mic placement. So depending on what microphones you have, I have a couple here, you'll want to choose the right mic that's best for the job. Something like a small diaphragm condenser could be great for acoustic guitars, pianos, any sort of acoustic source, even drum overheads. Something like a dynamic microphone like this Audix D6 would be better for kick drums, bass amps, any sort of low-end source. And then you have more of your regular dynamic microphones that are good for guitar cabs, snare drums, toms, things like that. If you'd like to learn more about mic selection, let me know down in the comments and I can make a more detailed video. But all you really need to know is whatever mics you have, just experiment. Try different mics on different sources and see what you like better for what you're going for. Along those same lines, once you get a mic you want, there's a lot of mileage you can get out of where the mic is placed. If this is the source you're miking up, the closer you get, this is called proximity effect, but the closer you get, the more low end you're gonna get. And the further you back away, the less lows that you're gonna get. So this is a great way to start to EQ the source that you're recording and tone shape it before you even get into your Logic Pro or your Pro Tools and have to start EQing things. Just play around with where the mic is located. On certain things like guitar amps and acoustic guitars, there's also an element to how left or right you are to the source, and even how angled you are. Along those same lines, and especially on sources like acoustic guitars and electric guitar amps, you will also get a frequency response change depending on how left or right you move, and also how angled the mic is. So definitely experiment with all of these things. Record a little bit, change the mic, listen back, until you get a sound that is the most what you're hearing in your head. It's free. It doesn't require any extra plugins. It's something you already have. Just experiment with mic placement and mic selection and see how far that gets you. Tip number 3 is to look into the different types of pop filters and reflection filters that are on the market. Now these are 2 different little categories. So the first one is pop filters. They can either look like this, a little foam piece that you put over the mic, or you're probably more familiar with this one, the classic pop filter that goes between you and your vocal mic. And these will help to cut down on wind noise. So wind noise could be, number 1, if you're outside, if there's wind hitting the mic, that's gonna make a kind of rumbly, unpleasant sound in the low end of your mic. So these will help to get rid of that. And these work in a similar way, except wind noise from your vocals specifically. So a lot of times, vocals will have plosive sounds, so those are your B's and your P's, can sometimes be powerful and hit the diaphragm of the mic in an unpleasant way, and these can help take care of that. The other type of filter I recommend is a reflection filter. So this one specifically is made for snare microphones, so if you're recording live drums, you probably have hit an issue with some sort of bleed getting into your snare mic or into your tom mics. And this helps to combat that. So basically you'll attach your mic into the clip under this filter. So this will be pointed at your snare drum. And then the important part of the mic is shielded from other directions from certain reflections. So this is especially good to be between your snare and the hi-hat, or your snare and the crash cymbal, and it'll help to cut down on that bleed a little bit more than some plugins can. Again, that's just another way that you can tighten things up on the way in and help to get a cleaner performance. Tip number 4, we will call it preamp management. So this is everything to do with the relationship between your microphone and the preamp. If you're not familiar with the term preamp, that could be your interface or your Focusrite little red thing you have. Basically, wherever you're plugging your mic or your guitar into to get it into your computer, there's some considerations and things to look at there. What this means is that there's usually an input gain or volume knob on your interface, and this is going to control how loud your microphone is going into the computer. If it's too high or too low, you're going to run into some issues. So if it's too high, you're going to actually clip or distort the ceiling of your preamp, and this is going to create like a yucky little distortion sound that's not pleasing to your mixes, and it's hard to get rid of if you accidentally go too high or clip. On the other side of things, if you record too low or too quiet, then you might need to turn it up in post, which is going to raise something called the noise floor, which is just the noise of your surroundings, the noise of your cables, the noise of your preamps. All this noise comes into play when you increase the gain in post or after it's recorded. Sometimes your interface will come with its own built-in utility like gain boosting and padding, which lowers the gain, but other times you need a third-party solution to plug in inline or process along the way. And so shout out to Triton Audio. They sent these over for me to check out, and I wanted to include them in this video. They specialize in making inline solutions for all of these problems. What I mean by inline is you plug this in directly between your preamp and your microphone. You don't need any additional cables, and it solves a problem. Each one solves its own little problem. So the FET head, for instance, will boost. If you've heard of a cloud lifter or an inline booster, this will boost the input gain of your microphone by a substantial amount and will allow you to reduce that noise floor and get a better quality recording. So if you are I don't know if you can see it, if you are an avid SM7B user, you'll know how notoriously gain hungry this mic is. Something like a FET head will help to reduce the strain on your preamp and give you more signal going in. Additionally, they make another one called the Airhead, which does the opposite. It actually adds a pad. So if you've ever recorded a really loud source and it's clipping your preamp, even when you have it turned all the way down, something like an Airhead will work well because you plug it in line and it brings down the volume before it hits your preamp. So I think all of these are under $100. It's not the cheapest investment, but in regards to all the other pro audio gear that's out there, this is a really inexpensive way to solve specific problems. My third preamp consideration, and this is kind of a bonus, but it's tried to color the sound on the way in. And what I mean by color is add some sort of analog flavor or character to the sound going in. Analog coloration is basically hitting some sort of analog electronics on the way into your recording. This is super popular in commercial studios and all of that when they record into those big, those big fancy recording consoles and all of that, or they record hitting tape. All of that is giving the audio its own distinct character and texture, and it's a little more exciting to listen to than just plugging into your little interface on your desk. Triton Audio also makes what's called the FET head transformer and the FET head germanium. These both add that analog color and texture that we're used to hearing in commercial recordings in a little package like this that you can attach directly to your microphone with no extra cables. So again, that's a great way to just add some life back into your recordings and maybe help set you apart from all the other people that are just plugging right into their interface. Tip number 5 is to tame dynamics. Now, if you've never heard either of those words, dynamics are basically how loud or soft your performance or your take or your recording is. And a lot of times with acoustic instruments especially, the dynamics will be all over the place, really loud, really soft. And although you can tweak these in post with processing like plugins and compressors, I've found that doing it on the way in gives you an extra level of control, and it helps with the previous tip of managing your preamp and your gain levels and all of that. A couple practical tips for this. Number one, when you're performing or recording someone who is performing, you can try to maintain your own dynamics while you're playing or while you're performing, or if you're recording someone else, try to coach them and say, hey, on that part you got a little loud, can you do it again but be a little softer? That's one way you can tame dynamics. Another way you can tame dynamics is with some sort of guitar compressor. So these usually work for guitar or bass or any instruments that have a 1/4 inch input, and this will help balance out dynamics on the way in before it hits your computer. So this is another great option. There's also inline options such as the Trident Audio compressor. This is another great way to tame dynamics. Really easy. Or you can also go the traditional route, although this does cost a little bit more money, and get something like a preamp compressor, like the Avalon back there. However, that is more money and takes us out of the video idea of things you can do for little or no money to help improve the sound. I'd only recommend that option if you have the money to spend or you've already tried some other things and have just decided that, no, it's time to do an external compressor. All of that to say, make sure to tame your dynamics, whether it's through natural means or inline options like this or a full-blown studio preamp. Number 6 is to use the high-pass filter when you need it. So if you're not familiar with the high-pass filter, also called a low-cut filter, this is basically a filter that you can apply either on the microphone or on the preamp that will roll off the low end and help clean up the sound of your source on the way in. This is something that you can do in post, apply the low cut, and I often do. However, the earlier that you can apply the low cut in your chain, the cleaner it will be. Low end rumble and mud can come from a number of things. If your AC is running in your house or in your studio, that could cause some. If you bump the mic stand and it rattles, that could cause some. It could come from a number of things, and it's important to just remove that, especially if you're using an instrument that doesn't need that low end anyway, like an acoustic guitar, a vocal. You don't need those super lows. In fact, the only things I keep the super lows on are things like bass guitar, kick drum, and toms. Other than that, you can do without it. In my setup especially, I have to be really careful when I record acoustic instruments like guitar or ukulele, and I have my fan on. When the fan's on, it's blowing this air down onto the microphone that will actually cause some low-end rumble. So I'll show you what that looks like in Logic, and I'll show you the frequency response, and then I'll turn on the low cut so you can actually see the difference that it makes. Tip number 7 is to prep the room. And now this could have been done earlier in the process, but it's fine to do it at this point in the process as well. Basically, the point of prepping the room is removing any distractions or noisy sources or unsavory noise sources that are happening in your room. Sometimes with this process, you have to get a little creative as to how you're mitigating these noise sources. For me, I had to get these noise canceling curtains to put them in front of my window because sometimes the lawn guy comes or there's noise outside from whatever source and it comes through the window and messes with my recordings. I've also built my own acoustic treatment in the room. You can see it with these big black things. I shouldn't have done black, but you know, hindsight. A couple other things you can do to cut down on noise is to point the mic directly opposite from the noise source. So for my example here with the noise from the window, if I point the mic at the window, it's going to pick up more window noise than if I point it opposite of the window. So in those cases where you have a noisy sound source somewhere, try physically, facing away from it. Or in most cases, you would be facing the noise source, so your microphone is facing away from the noise source. The other thing you can do if that just doesn't work, maybe it's more of an air situation, there's air hitting your mic, is to use your body to physically block the noise source. So another good example I have is my air vent up here will a lot of times throw air on me while I'm recording. And if it's a really quiet source, it'll be hitting that mic and generating noise. So I will physically block my noise source. Pretend it's behind me, the air is hitting me, I'm blocking it, and the mic is in front recording either me or the whatever I'm doing. And then that's a physical block between you and the noise source. You can do this type of thing with blankets and towels and anything you have laying around. So I'd recommend getting a little creative and experimenting and seeing what helps with your specific noise issues. But I think that'll get you a long ways, is just getting the noisy things out of your environment. Tip number 8, and this is a tip for when you actually do start recording, but it's commit to real and full takes. Something I see a lot of with people getting used to recording and that kind of thing is they will just record, they're like, okay, I'm recording guitar for the chorus, and they're just gonna stick to the chorus. What happens over the course of the song when you do this is you start to get these segmented blocks of music and they don't actually connect and overlap. And I recognize that that's good and helpful for kind of demoing and getting your ideas out, but when it comes time to record the real thing, whether that's the real vocal or the real keyboard take, try your best to do a performance of the whole song rather than just a section. What this is going to do is give more realism and flow and character to your overall recording. And I know this isn't always possible, right? We mess up, we need to do punches and all of that. So I'd recommend in the situation where you do have to do punches, give yourself a couple measures of recording before the part you need to record and a couple measures of recording after the part you need to record. So if you're just doing a punch in of the chorus, back it up 2, 3, 4 bars before the chorus, start recording and start playing before that point. And same thing afterwards, give yourself a little lead away. This is going to do 2 things. It's going to give you more options to cut and fade and mesh those 2 takes together, but it's also going to make your chorus performance more realistic because you have that lead in, you've already been playing your instrument or singing, and it's not such a jarring, sudden start to your performance. Most of these fixes are very easy to implement, and some of them even cost little to no money, and they're gonna make a huge difference on your home recordings and really help you get to that next level of sounding professional and sounding like you know what you're doing. If you found this topic helpful and want to continue to learn more and improve your own home recordings, head over to my website and join my newsletter. I send out monthly emails sharing Logic tips, recording tips, and even some occasional software discounts. So if that's something you're interested in, I've got the link down in the comments and the description for you to go check that out. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time here with me, and make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.